Good morning, everybody. So I have the privilege to kick off our division overview within the Joint Science and Technology Office. Very happy to be here, very happy to see, now that I can see everybody, this is truly impressive. So before I get into the slides themselves, there we go. I want to ask the audience two questions, okay? Two very simple, straightforward questions. When I ask them, I don't need you to shout out the answer. I don't need you to raise your hand, jump up. If you have an air horn, I don't need you, to push it out. Just think about what's being asked. So question one, have you ever had an idea that would help solve a problem? Right? So I didn't lie to you. Simple question. The idea could be something completely new. It can be a game changer. It could be big, it could be small. Or it could be something, as we talked to just recently, iterative. An iterative improvement of something that exists currently. But have you ever had an idea that you knew would make a difference if only that idea could be realized? That idea could be brought to life. All right, so that's question one. Question two. With that idea, have you ever faced any challenges, obstacles, difficulties, roadblocks that prevented you from making your idea a reality? All right, so just think about that for a moment. Again, there's two very simple questions, and I'm going to kind of venture a guess here. They're probably two questions that the vast majority of us probably at one point or another in our lives would answer yes to both going forward. Now, it just so happens that these are two very simple questions that those of us within the research and development R&D community, both in the public, private, and academia, kind of wrestle with and explore and try to resolve and solve. Really working to determine how best to facilitate the transition from the intangible, that idea, to the tangible, that reality going forward. And for JSTO, Joint Science Technology Office, and the broader Chem-Bio Defense Program, this is where my division, the Warfighter Integration Division, or CBW, comes into play. So, and I'm saying this with a smile on my face because I think we all know this. Ideas don't become reality through magic. This process requires exploration, refinement, user engagement, collaboration, demonstration. And to be perfectly fair, this process really requires a healthy dose of frank, honest, direct, constructive feedback from the end user. It needs to be solicited, it needs to be obtained. All of this and more is needed. So when the idea, the technology that we're working on does transition, it meets the needs of the end user, or more specifically in our case, for the warfighters operating in a CB contested environment, it hits that unique mission set that they're focused on. It provides that operational value going forward. This is primarily where the Warfighter Integration Division fits in that niche. All right, we work collaboratively with my fellow technical divisions, and what we're really focused on is facilitating that transition from early idea to mature technology, ready for transition to our advanced development partners going forward. We do focus, too, with that process of how can we integrate speed? How can we integrate flexibility? How can we integrate adaptability, right? It's a spiral development that we work as a catalyst with our technical divisions to enable the success, to enable the forward development, so when that technology does advance, it's what our warfighters want. It's what they need. It's what they understand, because we've brought them into the tent early on and solicited their feedback and said, hey, is this good, bad, what do you think? And we get it, which is phenomenal. There's a lot on this slide here, but I really kind of want to focus on two things. So one is kind of the three primary ways that we facilitate this transition process, and talk a little bit about the teaming of my division itself here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how the exploration and expanding of ideas technology that may change the way the warfighter fights. So a lot of times what we talk about from the concept space is I have an idea. I may not fully understand exactly where it's going to fit in within the battle space or who might be using it, but I got an idea. Is there benefit, is there application to this idea to move it forward? The next part too is when we talk about demonstrating the art of the possible. Now this too, there'll be a couple slides I'll be talking on it, is particularly important and I think frankly pretty cool. We take that technology from that concept, that idea phase into that kind of early prototype phase that the divisions are providing, and we put it in the hands of the warfighter. So that's your user assessments, right? We put it in the field, we give it to that E5 out there and say, tell us what you think, right? And they tell us what they think. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But you need to know that to evolve, to improve, to advance, to keep working through. And ultimately, you bring it in, you take individual components and you integrate it. So now you can say too, okay, Singularity, I know maybe how one might benefit, but as we look for more of a broader spectrum approach, not just on the medical side, but on the physical side, we say, what benefit does this provide to the mission at large, right? We are working with the divisions to provide that capability. And the last part too is when we talk about mitigating that transition risk. Our ultimate goal is to work with our technical divisions, with the performers, on the technology or technologies at hand, and to ensure when it does go to our advanced development partners, not only is that technology at the appropriate technology readiness level, TRL, but more importantly, that technology is tailored and targeted to that warfighter's needs, right? It fits the mission set of where to go. We try to save money and accelerate that advancement going forward by doing all that legwork in the beginning. Okay, so that's kind of the three primary ways. We do it through really kind of organizationally within my division, two primary kind of teams that you'll see both in the green and the yellow on the slide behind me. The first is the Advocacy Coordination Engagement Team, or ACE. I'll walk through that in a moment. And then what I'll really be focusing on today too is that Joint Technology Advancement Team, or JTAT, going forward. When we talk user assessments, talk demonstrations, that's kind of the core piece here. So just to kind of build a little bit about the team organization, you can kind of see the ACE team in green, the JTAT team in yellow. I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about that medical integration and warfighter engagement, primarily for the reason too is it's not just always technology focus, but it's education and connecting and building the bridge between two different communities. What we have found frequently is that the folks in the field know what their problem is. The folks in the lab kind of know how they can solve the problem, but there's a disconnect. When the folks in the field say, hey, I don't need perfect, but I just need good enough, what does good enough mean? Or more specifically, the context behind how does this impact me operationally, or why is this an issue that needs to be solved? That's that connection point that really that warfighter engagement really focuses on, connecting the warfighter with the scientists and the scientists with the warfighter. The other parts too that you're going to be seeing in yellow too is what I mentioned a little bit earlier. So when we talk too about the concepts early on, what is the idea, how to explore, how to refine, user assessments, what are we actually looking at? It's going to be a little bit more tangible, all the way through the ATDs. Now, I do want to take a moment to talk about that education, the connection. A better way of really saying this, it's a bridge, right? It's a way that we can all communicate in a common lexicon. One of the issues that we have found over time and working to resolve is we know what the issue is at hand. We kind of think where the solution might be, but how do we work upon the fringes and the edges to make sure that that solution can be developed a little bit more rapidly? And this really comes down with, we talk about educating the force, communicating with the force, and immersing the scientists within the force. So there's two kind of things that we do as enabling catalysts on top of the catalysts that I'm already talking about. One is going to be the Scientists in Action program. That's where we take, and there may be folks here in the audience that have participated, folks that work in the labs and immerse them within operational units throughout DoD. We just finished one up with the Navy. We'll be doing one with the Air Force in early calendar year 23. It's phenomenal. I have attended one of these myself. And what it really does, it puts that scientist in the mop gear. It has them walking through the training lanes so they can see through their own eyes, their own perspective, what the real issues are, what the challenges are. So when they work on their future projects to develop that next generation S&T effort, be iterative or game-changing, they already have that operational context in mind. The next part, too, I want to talk to is about the educating the force. All right, we do a lot of briefs walking through and talking through with our service communities about not only what we're doing within S&T, but soliciting that early feedback to say, hey, we think we understand your problem. This is kind of the main aspects of it. This is what we're trying to do about it. Does this make sense to you? And if so, how would you want us to proceed? So at the very early stages, and this is all done with the collaboration with the divisions, we can scope projects that are targeted to need and targeted to the actual demand that's being required. On the concepts assessment demonstration piece, I'll spend a moment talking here. You heard me a little bit early talking about technology maturity levels. A lot of times, too, that comes down to technology readiness levels, or TRL. What you're probably going to see here is, and don't worry too much about the technology concepts, the assessments, or demonstrations, but what I really want to stress is that CBW, while we work in collaboration, we don't do this alone internally within DTRA. It takes a full family, it takes a full Chem-Bio enterprise, starting with the DASD office, working with the requirements office, working with our advanced development partners, and most importantly, too, working with our performers, the labs, and the service stakeholders. That's how you generate solutions that work. That's how you generate things that when you put in the field, it's not just another rock in the rucksack, but folks say, I get it, I want that, I need that, and by the way, I can use that going forward. So within the actual JTAT side, when we talk concepts, assessments, and demonstrations, we really talk about three primary questions. On the concept side, when we talk early ideas, we really say, if this idea started coming to fruition, if it started coming to life, how would it be used, right? What's the application? Where can we go with this? Once it becomes a little mature, we talk the user assessment piece. We really talk to the benefit to the mission itself. Now, personally, this is the space, the user assessment and the ATD, Advanced Technology Demonstration, where we talk about the operational functionality. When we talk to you about the changing landscape, be it threat, force construct, or operational construct, this is a pretty cool space where you can take these technologies as they're getting ready to transition, receive feedback, receive actual saying this configuration works with these variables. If the threat change or the operational constructs change, this is the return on investment going forward. It's an awesome, awesome piece going forward. So want to take a moment to talk about CBOA, the Chem-Bio operational analysis. This is within the user assessment side. Early on, I talked about needing that healthy dose of direct feedback from the service members. This is one of our primary sources here. This event happens annually. And this is really where we take emerging technology, put it in the hands of warfighters, and at the end say, what did you guys think? Don't just tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, so we can best inform our divisions so they can improve the technology. So as it matures, it's targeted and tailored to the actual service needs. The next part, too, is going to be our advanced technology demonstrations. We just recently concluded our integrated early warning, or IEW, campaign series, and soon we'll be beginning our integrated layered defense, or Tenacious Dragon, which I personally think is a pretty cool name, campaign series for the ATDs. It's a wonderful way for the enterprise, especially when we talk about how we're going to de-risk things and see what works, what doesn't work, and even to highlight the benefit of failure. This is one of the last pit stops before we go to the advanced development side, to make sure when we transition things, it's what the service community needs. It's what the operational environment demands. And more importantly, we're providing our advanced developer that technology that they can then rapidly work on the speed and the flexibility to further fine-tune. So in conclusion, I personally love working within CBW. We work upon those kind of two questions that I asked early on. You know, if you have an idea that you knew would make a difference, how do you make it a reality, right? It started about 3-4 years ago. It's a great return on investment. I'm smiling because I generally believe in the mission. I'm generally excited about it, you know, going forward. I really like going out to the SABOAs, the ATDs, and I talk to, like I said, the E5s, E3s, and say, hey, what do you think? And they say, this is what I want. I want to be able to tell something, the button's in the wrong place, or the configuration's wrong, or this is really why this issue is important for me. Just those conversations unbelievably value to CBW and the other divisions so we can provide the technology the warfighter needs. So I do want to thank you for your time this morning. Remind folks that we do have different breakout sessions throughout. One on the Scientists in Action, great program for PhDs or lab scientists to come out and learn the operational construct as well as SABOA and ATDs. But with that, I do have the privilege and honor to introduce Dr. John Hannon, Division Chief of the Digital Battle Space Management Division. John.